And good morning, guys. Welcome back to the channel, back with the Wandering Mariner. So, a little correction to yesterday or the day before's video. A Starlink, apparently Military Sealift Command is rolling out Starlink to everybody in the fleet, which is a great thing. I think that if they get that out to everybody and everybody has communications, if that makes you happy to be able to communicate with your family, that is a big plus. So I'll be taking down the video yesterday just because I want to be accurate. I don't want to give out misinformation. Now, I worked for Military Sealift Command 3 years ago, and lots of things have been changing with Military Sealift Command. Notably, recruitment and retention. Now, there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of people that are saying, why does Military Sealift Command have this recruitment and retention problem? And Military Sealift Command, in their pursuit to get new people, have been throwing lots of money, lots of retention bonuses, lots of recruitment bonuses to get people to come this way from the commercial rate fields for experienced mariners and so forth. But I'm going to give you guys, and this is kind of a riff. This is my own personal opinion. I got this question this morning, which was kind of what sparked this whole video. But Hamid had sent me this. He says, great show. Can you please comment on the show he just watched, which is talking about the crewing crisis with Military Sealift Command. And I watched the video, and it was pretty informative, but it also gives the outside perspective looking in, and from talking to people and just doing research. And that's kind of the same perspective I have, with the exception that I feel like I left Military Sealift Command at the peak of the problems with Military Sealift Command. And 3 years ago, mid-pandemic, the Military Sealift Command did this policy where they were like, gangways up, nobody could leave the ship. It caused all kinds of heartache. People didn't feel appreciated. Pay on the outside of Military Sealift Command was skyrocketing. There was a good need to have new mariners, or not mariners, but new employees in the outside world. There was an employee crisis right after the pandemic. So a lot of people left Military Sealift Command for greener pastures, ones that didn't require the sacrifice that it takes to be with Military Sealift Command. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. Like, back when I came into Military Sealift Command, they never really had a problem with retention because people knew somebody that was in Military Sealift Command. I had a lot of coworkers that their aunts, uncles, parents, people that previously had worked with Military Sealift Command and kind of told them about it. And there was this like inside loop to kind of get in where you fit in and get with Military Sealift Command. And it was a fairly decent job. It was a great job, actually. But society has been changing, and people's expectations of what a good job is today has changed a lot. And with social media, me putting out these videos, there's a young lady, I just seen an article, she has like 50,000 subscribers, and she's in the supply department, and she does TikToks, and that's been a big boom for recruitment for Military Sealift Command, is getting this information out. But for me, I always kind of styled this channel is I want to tell you guys the real deal. I don't want to hype it up. I don't want to say that, you're going to make all this money. It's going to be great. You're going to travel, see the world, because I want everybody to have realistic expectations. And I think expectations in our society today are super high. Like everybody, like even if you work at Starbucks employees expect a certain level of pay. They want to unionize. They want better pay. They want better benefits. Everybody out there is looking for the next thing. And during the pandemic, there was a big boom in gig stuff like DoorDash, Grubhub, Instacart, Uber, Lyft, all those type of gig apps out there that people were going out there and making $25, $30 an hour doing that kind of stuff. And they were like, why would I want to be on a ship gone, deployed, when I can make that kind of money sitting at home and going home every day. And the expectations of time off and the realistic what Military Sealift Command can support, I think, is an Achilles heel for a MSC. And, back in the day, they just kind of said, this is the way it is. You're going to do 4 months. You're probably going to do 6 months on a ship. You're going to get relieved a couple months late. And people were like, I'm going to the union. I'm not dealing with this. Because in the union, there's a bunch of people waiting to come back out. Because the union is not controlled by federal mandates. Military Sealift Command has constrictions on how many employees they can hire, a certain percentage for each job. So they cannot hire 200% operations chiefs and have, a whole bunch sitting at home and a whole bunch out on the ship. So they have a certain number throttle that they're mandated by Congress and spending that they can hire. So that's one dilemma. Another scenario that, and in this video, I'm going to link the one down below. They talk a lot about, part of the problem with the retention of mariners is time off. And that does get to you. You have to have time to recharge and kind of have a life nowadays. Back in the day, like, your spouse, your girlfriend wasn't issued in your sea bag. Suck it up. This was a single man's game, and you were kind of expected to just go and work your butt off, and you'll get your time off later. And a lot of guys, that it was a single man's game, but there was also a lot of alcoholism in the career field too, because people would drink themselves silly when they were gone. And when the ship would pull into port, they'd go right to the bar and drink themselves silly too. So that was always like historically our past. But nowadays, you have to be ready to go to work when it's time to work. And again, kind of expectations. As a gig tuber or a YouTuber, I want to tell you guys that don't set your expectations to have this adventurous journey with Military Sealift Command, that you're going to travel and see the world and all these great things, because, and I kind of call this chasing the dragon. And I'm going to give you an example. My first deployment in the United States Navy. Now, I got stationed on a ship out of San Diego. My first weekend there, a friend of mine said, let's go to Tijuana, Mexico. First time I ever went out of the country. Went down there, had a blast, partied, met some women. I was like, this is awesome. Next week, my first week on board the ship, we went on deployment. Next stop was Hawaii. We were in Hawaii like 5 days. Then we went from Hawaii to the Philippines. We were in the Philippines 2 weeks. And that was 2 weeks of time off. And we were having maintenance done to the ship, but it was a lot of liberty, a lot of time off. Then we went to Hong Kong. Then we went to South Korea. Then we went to Okinawa, Japan. Then we went back to the Philippines for 2 weeks. Then we went to Singapore. Then we went to Guam. We went back to Hawaii. And we had 2 stops also, one in Sydney, Australia, and one in Townsville, Australia. So we had hit all these ports in 6 months. I had met so many women in all these places. I was like, I love the Navy. I am never, ever getting out of the Navy. And that was the hook. That was like the first time somebody does crack. You're just chasing the dragon. You're looking for that good of a deployment again. Here I am, 30-something years later, and I never had a deployment as good as that one. Had some good ones, but never one as good as that first deployment. And sometimes we see people now, because there is media influencers that are out there and telling you about the places that they're going and the things that they're doing. This, digital nomads that are posting all these videos about everywhere that they're going and everything they're doing. We all want to chase that dragon. We want to have those adventures. We want to go do things. But the expectations are you're not going to have those life experiences to meet those kind of expectations nowadays. Nowadays, the Navy is requiring a lot more of Military Sealift Command than ever before. We go out and you're supporting these battle groups. Back in the day, Military Sealift Command was more of an autonomous group of ships. Like when we were needed, we'd get called up, we'd show up, we'd give them their supplies, and we'd leave. Now, the battle groups want us in their hip pocket. Sometimes you might deploy with a carrier strike group, and you will go everywhere they need you to go. And they're only stopping for 3 days. Their 3 days are going to be, go out and get a little bit of break. Your 3 days are going to be load all their cargo and get ready to give it to them as soon as we get back underway. So there's this dilemma that, you don't get a lot of time off ashore. You don't get as much experiences out there that people did in the past. And the expectations from mariners seem to be really high. And I just kind of wanted to talk about that because I think that that's a big aspect of the retention, because people want to have this experience. At least that's what you're being told, right? And I'd seen this comment online the other day, and I wanted to share it. It says, venting. Man, I just need to vent. How do you all deal with this being away from home so long? Yesterday was the 4th of July, and watching family and friends on social media having fun while I was stuck on this tugboat pushing barges really did something to me. I think yesterday was my breaking point. Even if the pay is good, is it worth missing all these days away from home? I'll never get that time back. And that is the harsh reality of being a mariner right there. When my son was, I want to say 9 or 10, I asked him, are you going to join the Navy like your old man and travel and have some adventures? He said, I would never join the Navy and leave my wife and children home alone. That is the brutal reality of mariner life. And expectations of society nowadays is we want more time off. We want a work-life balance. We want all these things. And right now, the way Military Sealift Command and the maritime industry is structured, your time off is when you get your time off. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about that because when you take your time off for Military Sealift Command, because you are a federal employee, you're earning 30 days of vacation a year when you start out. Now, as you stay longer and get more time with the company, you earn more time off every pay period. And a little trick or hack that I always did to make sure that I always had enough time off is I would work overtime, and instead of taking the money, I would comp that time, which means that I will take that compensation of the overtime I worked as time off. And every pay period, I would comp 10 hours. So a day and a couple hours extra. Every pay period. So that way, by the time I got done with my time on the ship, I had well more than a month of vacation time left. So I would do 4 months on and more than a month off. And Military Sealift Command right now is trying to do this program or implement a program where you can work 4 months on and get 2 months off, and 4 months on and 2 months off. But the hurdles are the fact that there's not enough manning to support that quite yet. Retention of people isn't really there yet. And there's a certain percentage that Military Sealift Command is just going to lose every time. And it's mainly because people's expectations of what they're going to get into doesn't meet, what's out there. As an entry-level person with Military Sealift Command, I recommend this. Once you get on your first ship, plan on being there at least 180 days, 6 months. And the reason why I tell you this is by doing 180 days, you will have attained, and do more than 180, do 185 or whatever, but plan on doing at least 180 days on your first ship. And that takes commitment. If you're getting into the maritime industry, you should be prepared for commitment. But do that 180 days so that you can get enough sea time to upgrade to qualified person in the engineering department or as an able-bodied seaman. You need to get those upgrades so that you feel like this is more worth your time. And the thing is, a lot of people that start off with Military Sealift Command, they start off as a steward utility. Then they have to get into SU or a ordinary seaman or wiper. So the faster you get into those positions and get your 180 days, you could qualify to upgrade your license, take those courses and whatnot. I think that's something that when you start out, you have to be prepared for this commitment. If you're not, and you're more concerned about family and time off and whatnot, I don't think you'll be happy with Military Sealift Command. I don't think this would be the career choice for you. And this is just my personal opinion. All right, guys? Lots of things have changed with our society over the last few years. And I think that Military Sealift Command lost a lot of people during the pandemic. There was lots of people that didn't want to take the jab. They didn't want to have their liberty and time off constrained. The fact that an admiral could just say, put the gangway up and you could not leave the ship felt like a prison to a lot of people. And they were like, this is not worth the money. This is not what I want to do anymore. Now, Military Sealift Command is trying to right-side things, but I think it's going to be an upward hill battle, and I don't think you should have the expectations that you're going to be able to get that time off or that you're going to get relieved on time. There is just not enough mariners out there to make that happen, at least quite yet, unless they change the authorized amount of people that they could hire and the money there. So, and, there is also a lot of talk about the communication and how that will improve things for mariners. And I've had lots of questions and comments about Starlink and like being able to communicate with your family and pay your bills and do all these things. That's always been a big complaint for mariners. But also, if you go back to that previous question that I had from this guy, and he was venting because he was sitting on social media, seeing all of his friends and family. There is such a thing as too much social media, guys. You should watch my YouTube channel, but other than that. But the thing is, like, if you are on ship and you are opining after everybody else's life, you're not living your own life. You have to get your own hobbies when you're on the ship. You have to go to the gym. You have to play some music. You have to listen to music. You have to watch videos. You have to do something other than thinking about what's off the ship. You have to live today and be thinking about improving your own qualifications, your own certifications, and what's going on board that ship. And I think it's a big divergent of our mindset as mariners because we're so connected to these phones and technology that it's hard to turn that off and just go to work. And if you are married, this is going to be a hard gig to do. Like, just being straightforward. I think it's a young man's game. I think you've got to find somebody that wants you but doesn't need you. Because if your spouse is chatting with you, crying online about how much she needs you at home, you are not going to be doing well yourself. Your own mental health is not going to do well. And I think that's an important part of it. Too much communication is not good. Having too high of expectations about this career, you're going to make good money. You're going to make a lot of money, but it's relative. It's relative to where you're coming from in life. If you have a bachelor's degree and you're making six figures on the outside, coming to MSC and making, maybe a bit more as a mate, but giving up your life for 9-10 months a year, that's a lot to ask. That's a lot to ask of anybody in today's society because we have expectations. We want to have it all. We want to have time off. We want to have good benefits. How many people want to be these digital nomads nowadays? and don't want to go into an office anymore. You know, there is a big portion of the IT community out there. This big company had over, like, I want to say 40,000 employees. They said, look, if you don't come back to the office, you're not going to be eligible for promotions. Over half of them said, keep the promotion. I'll stay working from home. I don't need that additional stress to get a promotion. I'm happy with making six figures and doing what I'm doing. Military Sealift Command is in a quagmire right now when it comes to hiring because our society wants everything given to them. And people are not mentally set to make that sacrifice. However, I think this is the time when things are going to turn. If you look at where our economy is today, right now, the shitstorm is kind of just starting to brew. And as sales and things kind of drop, a lot of people that went out and got gig work or got jobs are going to be laid off. And Military Sealift Command is going to become a really darn good job here shortly. And I think the tide is already turning. It is kind of interesting that I've seen posts online from a lot of people that have certain credentials that are like, I've called Military Sealift Command or I've sent you all my stuff and you're not responding. Why am I not getting hired? I'm a chief engineer. I hold these credentials. Sometimes it's more than just the credentials, but there is a deep vetting period with Military Sealift Command. Entry level, a little bit easier. But if you are a mariner that has experience, like, you could hold it in your book. You could have qualifications in your book, guys, but it does not guarantee you a position. So the higher the level of the position, the more scrutiny it is on what experience you have doing it. Because if you're going to be the captain of a ship, well, how many ships have you docked? You know, because they want to know what class of ships you've been driving, how big of ships you've been driving, all these kind of scenarios. So experience really matters. So this was just kind of a tangent rant this morning. I hope you guys have a great last throes of the 4th of July holiday. I got a lot of work coming up this next week, but hopefully you get some value out of this. Make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll hit you on the next one. Peace.